So I went ahead and created a new project. Here I call this project Android Drawing. You name it whatever you want to name, and go ahead and create a project such as this. So I went ahead and created this, and I know you're able to create your own project. So go ahead and do that if you haven't done so. So what I want to show here is how to draw on screen using Canvas and Brush. Okay, so I'm going to go into my app here. Let's go to our Java. Inside here, I'm going to go ahead and create another class. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and create a new class here. And this class is going to be drawing. Okay. And the super class is going to be view. I want the Android view as such. And say OK. So we notice right away when we do that, we have some issues. We don't want to just import and view. We want this option enter. So we want to import the Android view, that view. I don't know why IntelliJ just gave us a very strange view. In any case, no problem. The moment you do that, you notice that we have a problem here because we need to have a default constructor available for Android view class. Because remember, this view class has all of the components, all of the properties that we want to take advantage of so that we can actually customize our own views. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and comply by actually adding a constructor that matches. You notice we have about 4 overloaded constructors here. Not to worry, I'm going to go ahead and add all of them. That's fine. In all this constructor, of course, you have to pass in the context, and you have to pass attribute sets and definition style attributes and so forth. At this point, we can actually get rid of all of these, or comment them out anyway, because we won't really need to use that. The only thing we want to be able to pass is indeed the context, because that's very important. Because that's the minimal thing that we need to pass. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do, I like to do, is to create a public void called init. Now this method here will initialize our view, right? So at the top here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a few variables, instance variables. The first one I'm going to create is going to be a paint instance variable. So I'm going to say paint. Remember, the paint is our brush class, okay, that knows how to set up our colors, shapes, and so many other things for our graphics, for our views. Okay, so I'm going to call this color. Let's call this brush. Okay, why not? For now, let's make it private, because we are good citizens here. All right, so that means now inside of here, now constructor, I like to go ahead and call our init. So what I'm saying here is that when we initialize this drawing class, when we're calling it inside of any other class, or in this case, we'll just call it inside of our main, we want to make sure that when we are constructing this object here, we want to also call the init after we have called the super and passed the context. So it will do all that it needs to do in the background, right? Because remember, this is still from our view. It will go ahead and take care of everything that we need taken care of. And then we pass in the init, which we're initializing whatever we created, which is where we are initializing our instance variables and other things. Okay, in this case here, I'm going to go ahead and say brush. I'm going to initialize it. It's equal to new brush, paint, that is. And what I'm going to do here, I'm going to pass paint dot. I'm going to use the anti-alias flag. What this is, anti-alias is a computer graphics term that we don't need to get into it right now. What this will do is it's going to add greater realism to digital images. So it's going to make sure that whatever we're painting, whatever we're showing on screen is going to be realistic. It's going to look good. Okay, so that's what we're doing here. So we're saying our brush will make sure that the strokes are going to be clear and clean and perfect. That's what we're doing here. Okay, now that we have our brush, which means we can set things to it, our brush to take a different color, to set a color. Just think of actually an actual brush, right? If you are going to be painting onto a canvas, you need to get color, right? Paint in this case. So you take the brush. Now what are we doing here? We're taking the brush and go to a paint bucket that has a color, for instance, green. So I'm going to say brush. I'm going to that bucket, set color, and I'm going to say color in this case, that parse color, right? I'm going to parse it say green. So I'm going to say now here, I want my brush to go and dip into a color green bucket. Okay. Now this is not over because now we've set the init. So now we have our brush because we know this is being called the moment this is created, the moment our drawing is instantiated. We still need to actually draw. But how do we draw? Well, to draw, we actually need to override the onDraw method. So the moment you go ahead and say onDraw, look, we have onDraw there, which takes in a canvas object. So the canvas again knows how to draw. So we have the brush. Okay, now we are going to use the canvas, which will then take the brush and is actually going to be able to do things, right? To actually draw. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to say canvas because we have this object here. I can say dot. I can even draw a few things. Let's go ahead and draw circle. Say draw circle. Look at that. This is one of those primitive shapes that we can use. Okay. Now notice the draw circle takes a few things. It takes the X value, the Y value, the radius, and of course it takes the paint, the brush. We want to make sure that we know exactly what color this is going to be or any other property that we need to add to this circle. Okay, so if I say enter, now it's prompting me to put, so where in the X position on the screen we want this to be. Well, I want this to be in the middle of the screen. So what I'm going to do, I can actually say get width, measure width, look at that. So this is going to get the entire screen, the entire view width. I'm going to get that. And what I'm going to do, I want it to be in the middle, so I'm going to go and divide it by 2, right? So if you want to find the middle of a line, you just divide the length of that line by 2, then you will get to the middle point. That's very simple math. And for the Y, see Y, I need to do the same thing, but now I'm going to say get measure height. And I'm also going to divide by 2. The next is the radius of the circle. So the distance between the middle of the circle to the circumference of the circle, right? And I'm going to say, for instance, I want this to be 24 F because we need to pass in floats. And for paint, we can either pass null, which means we're not going to pass any paint, right, object. But in this case, because we already have the paint object, we're going to just go ahead and pass brush as such. Let's move this super here to the end as such. And so what we're going to do now, before we even call this anywhere, I'm going to go ahead and say canvas, because every time you write on canvas, every time you create something, you want to say save, because we want to make sure that we are saving whatever we have added onto the screen. And that's it. So now what's going to happen if we instantiate this, it's going to go ahead and call the constructor, which calls first the super. So make sure that everything is set up from our parent view here, class, and then it calls our own init method, which initializes our brush and sets the color to our brush. And then, of course, it's going to override its own draw here, because notice we are overriding because we actually drawing something ourselves. In this case, it's going to be drawing a circle. And of course, we save. And of course, there's this super.onDraw. It's also called to take care of everything else that needs to be done. That's it. Now, if we go save this, how do we call this? Well, you notice here inside of our main activity here, there's this set content view. Ah, look, it says set content view. You're setting a view. In this case, by default, we actually set to an XML file, which is this activity main we've always seen forever, right? So that means then we can actually, since this sets a view, well, what do you know? This is indeed a view. Why? First of all, it extends a view. So that means we can actually set the whole screen to this view drawing, right? So what I'm going to do first, before I do anything like that, I'm going to say, let me instantiate our drawing first, our view. I'm going to say drawing is equal to new drawing. And you notice I have to pass the context, which is this, okay? Now that I have our drawing here, I can actually go ahead and get rid of this and pass in our drawing. If you save this, we should see our green circle. And voila, look at that. Very small green circle. It's really small. That means our radius is too small. We can make it bigger by going back to our drawing. And here, instead of 24, let's say 98. Give it a run. And voila. Look at that. You were able to draw a circle on screen. Now you can see the possibilities of things that you can do. Because the idea here is the following. When we build our applications, we can use all of the widgets, all of the components, all of the user interfaces that Android framework provides, right? That's totally fine. But it gets to the point where you want to be more creative. You want to create your own custom things. This is when you would want to be able to draw onto the screen as you wish, to create your own logic, to create your own object, your own graphics per se, and draw them onto the screen. Because the Android framework, although it has all that you need, all the widgets, all of everything that you need, but there are times when you will want to customize things yourself. That's the beauty of having a framework that allows us to do that. This is a very simplistic way. I hope that you start seeing the possibilities here. So Android really lets us do whatever we want. The limit really is your imagination. I mean, there's so many things you can do that stems from this idea here where we can actually extend from view and we can create a paint brush, in this case just a brush, and then we can actually draw onto the screen. So if you wanted to draw something else, of course, under the canvas, you can go say canvas, say draw. So we're just using the primitive or the given drawing capabilities that comes with canvas. So let's say if we want to do an oval or draw a line, look at this, I can actually draw a line. It tells exactly what I need. So I need the start point. Where do I want it to start? I want to start it from 0, which means in computer graphics, 0, 0, 0x, 0y is to the left. It's the left top of your screen. So that will be about here. Okay? So x is going to be 0. I want y to also be 0. And where is it going to stop? Right? So how far away you want to draw this. I can say, for instance, I want it to be in the middle of the screen. So I can say get measure height. I'm going to go ahead and divide by 2. And for y, I'm going to do the same thing. In fact, it should be the other way around. So this is height. This should be width. As such, I'm going to divide by 2. And paint, guess what? I could use the same paint brush, same color, or if I wanted to, I can create another paint, private, I can say paint, and this one is going to be red brush, okay, and I will initialize it here. I'm going to say red brush is equal to new paint. I can paint alias, like that, and I can say red dot set color. And I'm going to set the color to say color dot green or red. I said red, right? Red. So I showed here different ways to actually get colors. You can use color dot parse color, in which case you put in the string representation of that color. So if it's blue, you write blue. So green, you write green. And of course, this will parse and make it a color. Or you can just go ahead and go straight and use the color dot red static variable as such. Different ways to do the same thing. Okay, now that I have the red brush, I can go ahead and call it here for our line. Save this, give it a run. Let's see what's going to happen. Look at that. So it started from there to the middle of the screen. The other things you can do, there's so many things you can do. Because we know that our paint, our brush, holds a lot of properties, right? So we can add color, we can add other things. How about trying to add perhaps the width of our line? Let's go back to where we create our red paint. How about if we say red brush, I I can just set, look at this, so many things you can set to our brush, right? You can say, here you go, set stroke width. If you want to make the width of our stroke, right? We can go ahead and say, for instance, I want this to be 23F float. Look what's going to happen. Look at that. Now you see the width, right, is bigger. In this video, we're able to draw shapes on our screen here, and that's huge. The possibilities are indeed endless. There's so much you can do. This is just the beginning. So what I want you to do is I want you to create different brushes or different paints and create and initialize them here. We went ahead and draw a circle, draw a line. I want you to go ahead and draw other things, other shapes using the canvas object here, the canvas class. Okay, so maybe I want you to go ahead and find how to draw an arc and many others that you can't possibly find. Quicker way to do this, to figure out what other possibilities we have, just say canvas dot, say draw, and look at that. So many things you can draw, right? So I want you to go ahead and explore all of this yourself and share with us what you've discovered. Okay? Perfect. I'll see you in the next video.